They all thought they were different. They all thought they were untouchable. From the gold-clad halls of Rome, to the marble courts of Versailles, to the glass towers of New York, the story has never changed. Every empire follows the same path. 7 steps, one inevitable end. And what's terrifying is that we're already on step 6. There's a hidden pattern buried in history. A map of collapse. It appears every time a civilization reaches its peak. At first, it looks like progress. Rising wealth, innovation, expansion. But behind the glitter, the same 7 cracks begin to form. Economists call it a cycle. Historians call it fate. Empires call it impossible. Yet, from ancient Rome to imperial Spain, from the Dutch Golden Age to the British Empire, and now, the United States, the same sequence repeats. A chilling, almost mathematical decline that ends in silence. So, what are these 7 steps to ruin? And more importantly, how far along that map are we today? It began, as all empires do, with ambition. Rome wasn't built in a day, but its hunger for power was. From a small city-state on the banks of the Tiber River, it rose through discipline, innovation, and conquest. By the year 117 AD, Rome controlled over 5 million square kilometers, 1/5 of the world's population. They had roads stretching 250,000 miles, armies unmatched in strength, a currency trusted from Britain to Egypt, the silver denarius. They believed it would last forever. But history has no mercy for hubris. It started with step 1, overexpansion. Rome's borders became too vast, its enemies too many, its military too costly. To pay for it all, emperors turned to step 2, monetary corruption. They began to debase the currency, reducing the silver content of coins to fund endless wars. At first, no one noticed. A denarius looked the same, shiny, official, Roman. But within decades, inflation ravaged markets. Soldiers demanded more pay, citizens hoarded gold, and merchants refused Roman coins. To stabilize the chaos, they reached step 3, bureaucratic expansion. The government swelled. More officials, more taxes, more decrees. Paperwork replaced productivity. And while the people worked harder, the system drained them faster. By the time Rome realized what had happened, the foundation was already cracked. Corruption spread, morale collapsed, and with it, the idea of Rome itself. But here's the haunting truth. Rome wasn't the only one to walk this path. The same pattern appeared again, centuries later. Different flags, different kings, but the same fatal map. After Rome came Spain. In the 1500s, gold and silver from the New World poured into Madrid. Mountains of wealth, unimaginable power. But step 2 returned. Monetary distortion. Spain flooded Europe with silver coins, devaluing their worth. Prices soared. The empire's own treasure became poison. And while Spain celebrated its wealth, the real wealth, the productivity, vanished. Then came the Dutch Republic. In the 1600s, Amsterdam was the center of global trade. They invented the first central bank, the first stock market, the first multinational corporation, the Dutch East India Company. They conquered the seas with ships, not swords. But success led to step 4, financialization. Paper wealth replaced real goods. Speculation consumed trade. And when the tulip mania bubble burst in 1637, fortunes evaporated overnight. Next in line, Britain. By the 1800s, the sun never set on the British Empire. Industry, steam, colonies, it was unstoppable. But step 5 arrived, imperial overreach. Wars in every continent. An empire stretched so thin, even victory became a burden. And then came step 6, debt dependency. Britain borrowed to maintain its dominance. By World War II, the empire wasn't leading history. It was financing its own funeral. Finally, the United States. The post-war world was theirs. The dollar replaced gold. The military spanned the globe. Technology made them gods of progress. But then came the same cracks. Overexpansion, monetary manipulation, financialization, debt, and now, cultural fracture. 5 empires, 1 map, 7 steps. And each time, it ends the same, with pride giving way to panic. Every great empire believed it was different. That its technology, its intelligence, its democracy would save it. But history doesn't reward exceptions. It repeats patterns. Look around. The U.S. has followed the same map with unnerving precision. Step 1. Overexpansion. Today, American military bases span more than 80 countries. The cost? Over $800 billion a year. More than the next 10 nations combined. Just like Rome's legions, the burden of global protection has become the weight of overreach. Step 2. Monetary corruption. In 1971, the U.S. broke the final link between the dollar and gold. Since then, the money supply has expanded by over 30,000%. Printing replaces productivity. The empire funds itself not through creation, but credit. Step 3. Bureaucratic expansion. Each crisis births new institutions, new agencies, new controls. Every rule meant to stabilize ends up suffocating innovation. The administrative machine feeds itself. Step 4. Financialization. Wall Street becomes the empire's beating heart. Derivatives, swaps, algorithms, abstract wealth detached from the real economy. In 1950, finance was 2% of GDP. Today, it's nearly 25%. America stopped making and started speculating. Step 5. Debt dependency. National debt has crossed $34 trillion. Every dollar is borrowed from tomorrow to buy comfort today. Just like Britain in the 1940s, the empire still looks strong, but its strength runs on loans. Step 6. Cultural fracture. Empires don't just collapse from outside, they erode from within. When citizens stop believing in shared values, the map nears its end. Division becomes the final act before disintegration, which leaves only one stage left. Step 7. Reset. The moment when the system, under its own weight, must reinvent or fall. Every empire believes it can manage the storm, that it can print, legislate, or innovate its way out. But history shows collapse is never a single event. It's a slow-motion implosion, visible only in hindsight. When Rome's economy failed, they clipped the silver from their coins. When France's monarchy collapsed, they printed assignats, paper money backed by land that no one trusted. When the Soviet Union fell, it wasn't tanks that ended it. It was empty shelves, worthless rubles, and disbelief, and now, the United States stands at the same edge. The signs are familiar. A currency losing faith faster than it loses value. A generation locked out of ownership. Leaders who call the debt manageable. And a population divided by design. But this time, the reset won't come with swords or revolutions. It'll arrive digitally. Already, governments are experimenting with central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. They promise efficiency, stability, control. But history whispers a warning. Every time an empire tightens its financial grip, freedom becomes the first casualty. A digital dollar could mean programmable money, where spending limits, expiration dates, and transaction tracking are the new frontiers of control. It's the modern equivalent of the emperor's seal on every coin, a perfect system for those in power. And yet, the story could still change. Because the final stage of collapse isn't always death. Sometimes, it's rebirth. But the transition is never peaceful. When an empire resets, its citizens pay the price first. Savings vanish, institutions crumble, faith dissolves, and in that void, a new system emerges. Will it be a digital empire, or the return of something older, harder, more honest? History doesn't tell us what will happen next. It only tells us what always happens eventually. Every empire writes its own obituary long before it falls. But the words are always the same. Expansion, excess, debt, corruption, collapse, reset, rebirth. The cycle is not random. It's a rhythm, a pattern that pulses through time like a hidden metronome of civilization. The Romans didn't see it. The Ottomans ignored it. The British denied it. The Soviets tried to outplan it. And now, the Americans are repeating it. History isn't just a story of nations. It's a mirror. And when you stare into that mirror long enough, you begin to see the reflection of your own future staring back. The question isn't if the pattern will repeat. It's how much time we have left before it does. Maybe the digital dollar will save the system. Or maybe it's the final experiment before the next great unraveling. Maybe the 7 steps aren't prophecy, but programming. The same script, run again and again across centuries, with only the actors changing because in the end, no empire collapses overnight. It decays slowly while pretending it's still invincible. And when the lights finally go out, it happens in silence. A whisper, a flicker, a screen that once displayed numbers. Now blank. This isn't the end of history. It's just the next chapter of the same story. A story written not in books, but in balance sheets, treaties, and currencies. And, as always, the map of collapse is already drawn. We're just tracing its lines. If you want to understand what comes after collapse, the rebirth, the reconstruction, the next system, subscribe. Because the empires may fall, but their patterns never die.